Welcome, everyone. My name is Kate McCarthy, and I'm the Executive Director of the World Affairs Council of Maine. Thank you all for braving this crazy weather this evening. We do not yet have Nsiona here. He's stuck in traffic, but he will be joining us soon. I want to begin by thanking the sponsors of our program. In addition to this program, in September, we hosted the African Union Ambassador to the United States, Dr. Arikana Chimpori-Kwa, and those programs were supported by Coffee by Design, as well as Avesta Housing. We also had some in-kind support from the Hyatt in the Old Port and the University of Southern Maine. I can't help but point out that Mary Ellen Lindeman, co-founder of Coffee by Design, is here tonight, and I've been dying to ask this question to a group where a program's been sponsored by Coffee by Design. Raise your hand if you've been to a program that's been supported by Coffee by Design. All right, excellent. And now everyone in this room has, so thank you to all that you do in our community. I also want to thank all of our members who are here tonight and all of the practitioners here who do work with asylum seekers in Maine. So we have representation from Verrill, from Bernstein Shore, from service providers like ILAP, Preble Street. We have representation from local school districts. We were hoping to have Mayor Kate Snyder here tonight. She shares her regrets. She is at the District 5 annual meeting, otherwise she would have been here. And lastly, before I introduce our panelists, I'm particularly excited about tonight's program because it's an opportunity to highlight yet another benefit to welcoming new populations into our state. We talk a lot about the need to bring younger people into our state. We talk a lot about the fact that the baby boomers are retiring, and so we need to replace that workforce. But another benefit is education and access to education. And now that we have a more diverse state and we have new residents coming not just from Canada or Western Europe, we are able to learn a lot more. And I'd say that, you know, if we 20 years ago we the council 20 years ago were looking to do a program on Angola and DRC, we would probably be tapping the shoulder of a professor or someone who was working in US government, maybe USAID, and they certainly would be able to share a lot of interesting content. But now, with a more diverse state, we're able to hear from leaders like Luke and Papy. They can share their own experience and expertise. And so I guess I'd just say I'm happy to add another reason to the list of benefits to welcoming new populations to our state. So again, I said that Nsiona is not yet here, but he will be joining us. He is the cultural broker for the town of Brunswick. He was hired in August to help ease the transition of asylum seekers into the Brunswick community. He is president of the Angolan community of Maine and played a major role in working in the expo this summer. To my immediate left is Luke Samuel Matumona. He is the Community and Cultural Ambassador for Hannaford currently. During the 2019 Expo project in Portland, he served as the Congolese community's lead cultural navigator. He helped to develop and implement the cultural integration strategy for all of the new asylum seekers and their host families. Back in DRC, he held various positions in the communications field, including permanent senior interpreter and translator for the political section at the South African Embassy in DRC. And beside him is Papy Bongibo. He's the president of the Congolese Association of Maine. He also played a major role in all of the work at the Expo this summer and continues to work with the new asylum seekers in Maine. He is an entrepreneur and founder of the New England African Arts, Entertainment, and Community Association. So they're here volunteering their time, which we're grateful for because they're incredibly, incredibly busy leaders in our state. But for tonight, the first hour or so, we're going to do a panel discussion, and then we'll have about a half an hour for Q&A. So if If you can save your questions until then, that would be wonderful. And we're going to do our best to kind of navigate without Nsiona, and once he can join us, then we'll ask him questions as well. But the first half is talking about life in DRC and Angola right now. So Papy, if we can start with you, can you tell us a little bit about what life in DRC is like right now? For example, talk about housing, schooling, employment, what sort of opportunities are there?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm so glad that tonight it's a wonderful night, and it's actually probably the first time I will be sharing the Congo stories. I'll say with the Maine or national communities. I left Congo since 2003, and I moved to Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, to join my family. And I ended up in Maine in 2010. And what brought me here was a family issue. So me, my ex-wife, and my son had to move here because of his disability condition. So I had a friend who were actually living here who talked to me about how men were treating kids with disability. So that's what actually made me decide so I can come here so my son can have a good service in the state of Maine. And when I left Congo, life was miserable because, as you know, Congo is one of the richest countries in the world, but it's been run by most of the dictatorship president that actually ran the country for the best interest. In general, in the Congo, life is either you are rich or you are poor. That makes it sound like if you are living the life, and in order to make it, you need to work hard, or sometimes it feels like you have to know someone, in the government, or you have to have some powerful people in the family who actually can help you go to good school or get a better job. Or actually, so it's I always like when I first moved to the United States, that's what actually captured my mind. It's like, well, you coming from a country that has been struggling, and you've been seeing, even though my life was a little better because my grandfather was a businessman, though, but like this, few school only. If you have to go to the good school, you must have money. But the majority of the school system are a disaster. That means the teachers are not paid, and which push them to be corrupt. So in order to to get a degree or to move to the next level, you have to actually pay. And also for employment, as I said, it doesn't matter if you finish, you have a degree. It doesn't matter how good you can do in school. If you don't know, after you graduate, for example, if you don't know anybody who can support you, can back you up, you're never gonna get a job. That means you have people who's been graduating for the past 20, 30 years, but never get a chance to work, and never get a chance to get paid, and still living in the family houses. So this is how hard, in general, people always and still trying to get out of the country, because sometimes it's the war, sometimes it's the economic, but it's hard for someone to survive and support the family if you cannot get a job, if you cannot have your kids go to school. Even starting a business, it's a big issue because the only people that start business is the people that had family, that had money, that can support them to start something. They don't give you credit. So everything makes it hard for you to see a vision in the future because you are telling yourself, well, I better leave this country or I'm gonna die. This is pretty much, in like the professional way and on all the areas, it's pretty much life is like obscure, it's dark, you don't see the future. That's why you see like everyone in the country feels like at least I want to leave this country, go somewhere to seek a better life for my family. Yeah.
In addition to that question, I'm interested, oftentimes new immigrants in our country, asylum seekers included, will comment on the relationship between communities and local authorities and the difference here in the United States. Can you comment a little bit on communal relationships in DRC with local authorities like the government, the military, traditional leaders, for example?
Okay. Where I'm from, it's like when we grew up, your first enemy is the police officer and the army, because in the Congo, it's like, you know, when you're walking or they always advise you to run away from the police because they are the one who's actually going to take your money or is going to kill you, you know. And the relationship, I would say there's no relationship, you know, because it's either you run away or if you get arrested, because the police and the army is the most powerful tools that every dictator, you know, use to kill or discriminate his own people. So they create like a fear, because if they want to arrest you, if they want to torture you, because you have no right to say anything because they're going to send the cops or they're going to use the army to actually kill you. But this is the difference. Like that's the reason you saw that every time we have a group of Congolese, or I would say the asylum seeker, because it's the great example, we always make sure, because our first big conference was with, we actually had an immigration session, so people can first learn not to fear the police, because every time you are new to this country, as soon as you see a cops, you have the same feeling, you know, it's kind of coming back in your mind, like, well, cops are not to mess with. So that's the reason that on my experience with the Portland Police Authority and the Portland Police, the Portland Police actually. So I made sure that we called the chief of police, which he was such a nice guy who actually came and talked to our new asylum seekers, which is like, well, we understand where you're from, and we know that once you're here, we know maybe where you're coming from. You know, you used to run away from the police, but it's not the case here. So feel free. Police are your friend. You either here in the United States, we seek safety when you run over the police instead of running away, which I understand that it was a great relief for the new asylum seeker, because and I like it the way some of them also were taking that courage to ask questions. It maybe sound a little bit, you know, like I remember one asked the chief of police, well, I heard that if you with domestic violence, for example, if you beat your wife, they're gonna arrest you. How about if your wife beats you? Are you gonna still get arrested? So the cops were like, no, it's this is for everybody. You know, violence it's excluded. So you cannot beat your wife. It's the same that your wife cannot attack or slap you. And I like. I mean, I remember also. The good thing I love about Portland, I'll say maybe the state of Maine, it's the relationship between the city and the community. You know, we had a great relationship between the mayor and the councilors and the city staff, which brought it back in the memory. I remember when the first group of asylum seekers, you know, we're supposed to get here. The first phone call I received was from Mayor Ethan. Like, he called me in the morning, and I think I was a little busy, and I called him back. He's like, oh, did you hear what's happening? I'm like, no, I didn't hear about anything. And he's like, oh, we heard that we're having over 400 asylum seekers, mostly from the Congo and Angola, coming on our way. I'm like, oh, I don't know about it, but let me check with few people around. And I hang up, I called some few friends, and they actually sent me a few links, because it apparently was on the news already. So I called him back. I'm like, yes, Yeah, someone just confirmed it, and it's true. And my feelings are like, wow, how. I mean, this is actually the first time, even myself, to see a large, big number of people traveling to one city, which is we never used to it up here in Maine. And my concern was like how the people of Maine or the city of Portland is going to react. And so I told him, well, yes, I saw it, and he's like, okay, I think they, I think they are welcome. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, really? I'm like, yes, so they are welcome. So that gives me the courage to stand up and actually, because I remember the first number right here between Wednesday or Thursday, so I went to visit them and actually came up and just like, well, you know what, I understand like how hard it is, and I know where you came from, but all I want is just to tell you, you are welcome, and all the people here in Maine are welcome to see you as a one family. So, and since then, me, myself, and Nsiona, and all the immigrant coalition into the game. So, I mean, we're helping the city, and we also appreciate the governor decision, because somehow we're thinking, well, how are they going to react up there? Because Portland may say yes, but how's the governor going to react? So, and I think for today, I don't know if it's a good time, but I would like to take this opportunity to really thank the people of Portland, Maine, because this is still, still remember that. I'm like, well, it's not always easy to be somewhere that people with color are well welcome, though, and you don't see. I mean, you see that diversity. You see, I understand. Some people may get like, well, these people are coming here. It's not really about that. It's like when you look around, like, well, this is a city, and I thank God. I moved here, and I love being here. So thank you for everybody who helped out, and I really appreciate what you did, and I'm proud to be a Mainer. That's what I'll say.
Thank you, Papy. Nsiona, welcome.
Thank you.
So glad you're here. The next question will go to you. So I asked Papy to tell us a little bit about life right now in DRC. And so I'm curious about life in Angola right now. Can you talk a little bit about education, employment, what sort of opportunities are there?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I have to apologize to everybody. I've been a little bit late. With the traffic between Brunswick and here, it wasn't easy today. So I got caught in the transit, so sorry. The good thing is I'm here. So you're going to learn a little bit about Angola. So now, Angola is one of the west central country in Africa. We have a border with Congo, and then Namibia, Zambia. So that's mostly the free country. And then we have the Atlantic, the other side. So Congo is almost all the north of Angola, and then a little bit the east too. And then you have Zambia, you have Namibia. So that's where we are. So if you search us in the map, you're gonna see us in the middle, right in the middle, and then in the west side. So about Angola, there is so many things to say about Angola, but let's say Angola is going through a crisis right now. Since 2000, roughly 2015, we got in situation is really complicated, and then we are trying to fight it to see if we can make it. Yeah, it's really complicated. In 2005, the country was booming. We have up to 2 digits growth in the economy. And then that time, everybody was looking at Angola, wanting to go in Angola. And we got the chance to do some stuff with that money, but we didn't do what we should be doing back there to diversify the economy. We didn't. So we owed on the oil and the diamond that we have so much. And we rely on that during all this time. And then you have the crisis of oil. And that time, the price went down, really down. That it hurt us. And then we have that situation with, let's say, the exchange money, because we have an economy that you don't have here. Two currency in the same economy. So you have the kwanza, you have the US dollar. So, and then any time that the US dollar disappear, which is because the BNE is the Banco Nacional de Angola, our central bank couldn't buy any more dollar from the US. So it was too bad. And then everything began to plumb. Everything, when I say everything, I mean it, really everything. Everything began to close, everything began, to get worse. So you have the economy went down, the employment went up, so the business were closing, everything. So to give you an idea, the price of a bag of rice was 2,500. Yeah, no, not dollar, kwanza. So yeah, 2,500. The kwanza, it went from there to today, yeah, something a little bit more on 13,000. Okay, so hold your breath. 2,500 to almost 15,000. So that's what's going on in Angola, and then you can put it in the other sectors. So all the budget of Angola was supplied by the oil, and then when the oil get the heat, everybody you can imagine, school, hospital, everything, and then the good from Angola, we didn't never had to borrow money from any country until 2017. Then we opened ourselves to the money that the World Bank was offering and the FME, IMF. Okay, so that itself make the Angola even worse because you have the restitution program that you have to go through in order to pay your debt. So they don't let you do those subventions that you do. Like, for example, the school was free. You can go to the hospital for free. You go to even the college for free. Now you don't have it anymore. The subvention for the gas, the gasoline, you don't have that anymore. All my life, I never paid $1 for a liter of gas. Never. So now it's so, and then you have all these things coming around, and then you have the situation. Actually, it's very, very worse. You don't have the structure to have free medical support. You don't have the school anymore. You don't have even the people working in the government, the support that you have giving to them, you don't have it anymore. And then at the same time, the new power decide to fight the corruption. And then with that, it comes a lot of stuff. So you go after people and people, it's not just easy. So economically talking, we are in the worst situation right now. The employment, it's almost like 20 or 28%. And then I can tell you more than 15% of the youth ready to work, they're not working. And I can tell you also, almost 65% of people should be working, they're not even looking for a job. So even when I say 28% of people unemployment, it's not true because 55% of people, they're not even bothering themselves to look for a job. So I'm telling you that those who are going to look for a job, you have 20% of unemployment. So it's really a good situation you want to be in. With that said, you can imagine the government itself, only the government provide up to 85% of jobs. I'm gonna say it again. The government itself provide up to 85% of jobs. So that means there is no private sector. Everything, when I say 85%, you have all the teachers, all the people working for the government. So you have the administrator or whatever staff that you have in the government. That itself is 85% of people working in Angola. The governor of the province or the state or whatever, all those people, it's 85%. So in the other sense, I have to say that that's show to me right now sitting here how much opportunity that we still have out there for Angola. Because only people working for the government, only people working in those structures like governor, like mayor, all these people, 85%. So imagine if you bring all the private sector in play, how much job we can create. Another thing I want to say is the importation, exportation piece, which is very important in the economy. So we import almost 90% of everything we eat in Angola. Okay, I'm gonna put it this way. You know when you cook your rice, okay? Can you imagine everybody here knows a little bit how to cook rice, right? So, okay, when you're cooking your rice, everything that goes in there, if you want a vegetable rice or whatever rice that you can imagine, the only thing that is produced in Angola, that's what goes in there, it's water. That's how sad it is. Every other thing is imported. So it's bad, right? But for me, it's an opportunity. Imagine now if we can produce at least 50% of that things that we eat. How much we can produce as employment. So just to give you an idea what's going on, and then in my country they say, o saco vazio não fica de pé. How to say that in English? So if you don't eat, you cannot stand. And then when you cannot stand, oh God, it gets too bad. And there is another saying, we say that until that até que o povo se levanta, os governantes continuam a dominar. Until that the people stand for themselves, those in power are gonna keep controlling everything. So that's what's happening right now. So you see the movements coming around, people are now standing up against the power because it's just too much. The other thing I want to stay here before that we go even deeper is like the Angolan population have been colonized for more than 5 centuries. So that itself left a lot of stigma in the population. And then we could go for 32 years of war, nobody say a word. You can go through a lot, nobody say a word. Until today, thanks God, we have social media. And then you have people like myself here. And then we can just push our people to stand up. You know, we are having now people begin to stand against the power, against whatever this stuff, and in return, you have all the thing that you can go through. Every time you stand up, I tell me when I have to stop, because most of the time I don't stop. So don't worry, stop me, huh? Really, I mean it, stop me. So I really like, one of the things that I like to see on TV, it's my brother travel, and then NFL, right? That's a comic stuff that you have a comedian talking about. Is he N something? Yeah.
Trevor Noah.
Noah. Okay, yeah, Noah Travel. So I like this guy so much because, oh my God, when I see what he can do here with the people in power, and then I see what can happen in my country, I'm like, what? This is America, man. So I like America even more to see all this happening. And then what we are missing in Angola, it's a private sector. So we don't have it at all. And everything, I was amazed to learn that there is almost nothing belonging to the government in America. Almost nothing. Even the road, it's privatized. Somebody take the toll money and then keep up with the. I'm like, really? Oh my God, how you do that? So it's really amazed to see that, because even the hospital have to be subsidized by the government so that you have somebody, even though you don't have people treated, because now they cannot pay the people working in the hospital. They cannot pay the teacher. Now you have what Papy was saying here. Everybody want to make it from their own pocket. You have to pay yourself. So how you do that? You don't give him the treatment that he needs so that he come back to pay you the money so that you have the treatment. So you have that until you have the cop doing the same thing. So when you have to pay yourself the cap with the money coming out of your pocket, tell me how you're going to fight the corruption. Tell me how you're going to have liberty. Tell me how you're going to be safe. Because for money, then you can buy your brother's soul. Just for what? $10? 20? Let's put it 100. Is it enough for life? I don't know. Yeah, let's put it 1,000 then. Is it enough? I don't know. But I can pay somebody 1,000 a cup just to take care of your life. Because now the cop doesn't have a salary, and then I can pay 1,000, can make it for what, 3 months? Then I estimate your life for 1,000. That's what's happening. Somebody can die just because he doesn't have gloves. Can you imagine these gloves? They don't offer it anymore because the government cannot afford to buy, to furnish, or to provide this to the hospital. There is no more subsidy, it's no more money, so you cannot do that anymore. Because the IMF say, hey, you have to pay your money first, you have to put some tax in it, you have to put so many restrictions, restructuration of the economy, it gets you even down. And then the people who are paying for that is not the people in power. It's the people, actual people. So we are suffering. And then when they are suffering, because they don't get it, the government have his hand tied. They have to pay the loan. So if you don't pay, then you get in trouble. If you have, because you have the money for FMI, IMF, you have to pay. That's why ID is like this today. They went for what, 7 restitution, and then nobody can survive anymore. So I will perhaps say a lot more later, because I can see how Kate is looking at me. So she's gonna say, hey, stop. Yeah,
Thank you, Nsiona. You brought up colonialism, and that leads into our next question, which I'll ask of Luke. Can you share a little bit about the historical events that have contributed to the situation in these two countries?
Thank you, Kate. So what has been described by both of my predecessors in this presentation is just a description of what can come close to being defined as two failed states The issue we have here is that the states are functional at a protocol level. You look at them, they've got representations, they've got government, and they've got all entities that could form the government, but the government is not working for the good of everybody. It's working for the good of a handful of people. And this problem here stems from the inception of these countries. Actually, if we look back at Congo and Angola, I'm actually both from both sides. My father was born Congolese. My mom was born Angolan and came as a refugee in the Congo in the 1970s. And she was naturalized in 1976. I was born in 81, meaning 6 years after my mom became a Congolese. So in a sense, I still have roots in both countries. And the way these countries were born was not intentional at a local level, meaning that the local populations did not decide this is the border and this is where we're building a national identity. It was born from the fact that colonially there were kingdoms and empires in both these territories, and these kingdom and empires were overlapping for the most part, especially the Congo kingdom, which was overlapping between the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Congo-Brazzaville, and Angola and Cabinda. And you have empires like the Lunda Empire that was overlapping between Angola and the Congo as well, and some other empires and kingdoms, Cuba, Azande, and Mangwetu, and so on and on. So there was a traditional government structure that existed, but it did not exist in the format of the maps, reflected in the maps today in terms of being the DRC or Angola. People stemming from the same origins, from the same tribes, from the same ethnic groups, have been sliced into 2-3 different pieces and made to antagonize, to regard each other as not belonging anymore. The sense of identity has been weakened. That's one of the first harms that affected this region, and that was laying the groundwork for crisis along the path. For example, I'm here, I'm born in the Congo. A good deal of my cousins are born in Angola from my mother's side. I know about them, I can talk to them on social media, but I cannot fully relate to the situation because I feel more of a Congolese than an Angolan. And if I was to be kicked out, because silly stuff happens sometimes, people can kick you out of your country, say, go back to the country of your mother, as if you have to choose between your father and your mother. You go back to a place where you have never gone. So next thing you know, you find yourself in a crisis of identity because you haven't developed ties with that country, and you do not have any underpinnings, underbearings that could make you feel like you belong there. So I really want to quickly touch to the fact that there's individual crisis and group crisis in this situation, because some people are born from people from both sides of the border. And the situation does not just affect Congo and Angola, but it also affects countries like Congo and Congo-Brazzaville, Congo and Central African Republic, Congo and Rwanda, Congo and Burundi, Congo, Tanzania, Congo, Kenya, and so on and on, Uganda. So basically, the Congo currently sits as a massive plot of land of 2,345,000 square meters, and surrounded by 9 neighboring countries. So with a country like Mexico being your neighbor, you already have a problem. The problem with the Mexicans right now, for a lot of Americans on the southern border, is immigration. When you look at your neighbors, the Canadians, the problem you have with Canada right now is that they like hockey, and you guys like American football. I mean, I'm just trying to downplay it a little bit. So in a sense, you always have some sort of beef with your neighbors. So the fact that these countries were born from colonialism, and colonialism has helped determine where the borders should be laying, it has created some beef, some bad blood between people. not because of historical ties between them, but simply because new national identities have developed, a new sense of belonging and identity have developed within these restricted territories. Now, it starts with an identity crisis. Then comes an issue of government crisis. Governance in Africa, for the most part, in places like Congo and Angola, are mostly totalitarianism. Why? Because it stems from the traditional perception of a chief. In these kingdoms and empires and chiefdoms that existed back in the day, there was no democracy. There was no room assigned for people to give a feedback. They were they underwent the coercion from the decisions of the people who were in power. It was usually a family or whoever took over from them. So in a sense, developing what is it called again? I can't remember, a dynasty, like a power dynamic built around a specific set of families or individual has become almost a traditional way of looking at power. So democracy you can find on the streets of Africa, and especially places like the Congo and Angola, the word per se, but the way it is articulated is not the way you would perceive it. I'm not saying that American democracy is more pristine than African democracy, but it is a very different articulation of democracy down there, because it is a build-up of power around a set of individuals who become the superhumans. They have access to all the advantages that everybody else is longing for. So what's happening here is that you have a set of people that are ruling over a mass of other people, and once something happens like a coup or a revolution and then they take over, it's a new dynasty that just settles in, and that's a crisis. The problem is there is no clear agreement in terms of what the underbearing principle should be for the existence of this country. People have developed national identity within these borders, which is a good thing. People feel like Congolese, they feel like Angolans within this given sets of borders, but the problem with that is it's not working for everybody. It's working for a handful of people. Now we're describing Congo as a place of crisis, a crisis-stricken land, but some of the latest vehicles, and I assume there could be some Tesla on the streets of Kinshasa, without power supplies to help plug them, just for sake of showing that I've got money, they can afford to buy and run those cars on roads that are filled with potholes. So it's a life of contradiction. And just as the chairman of the Congolese community was saying previously, there is no middle class. You either are the haves or you're the have-nots. And there's also some go-between. This has also existed. I mean, the go-between meaning that they're not the middle class, but the swing from time to time between being sitting with the REITs or just falling into the depth of poverty. And there is just no middle class balance. It creates some sort of identity crisis as well. We can talk about it later. So in a sense, what happened is that the Belgian colonialism in the Congo opened doors for a type of management that had showed no empathy for the people that were being led. They were being used as bait for wealth. They were being used as a milk cow, simply, because in the times of Belgian colonialism, there was quota that were very often set for people to go and harness some specific natural resources and bring them and make them available to the tax collectors from the Belgian government. So Belgian colonialism started with individual colonialism, which is extraordinary. A single individual, King Leopold II, decided that this massive plot of land that no one wanted to have access to get hold of, because there was a limitation in terms of access, and it was not sitting by the seaside, but it just had a small strip of land that gave access to the sea. Therefore, no one wanted to be ruling the set territory from Europe. I mean, the Germans were on the west and some other parts in the southern part of Africa, and the British were in South Africa and some other places. Spanish, Portuguese, they all picked things that were sitting on the seaside to make sure that they have access not just to harnessing the resources, but also exporting them and taking them outside of the territory, and therefore building their wealth. It's sad we're talking about poor countries right now, but the glamorous buildings we're looking at in the West, especially in Europe, have mostly been founded by that plunder of countries like the Congo and Angola. And that has also set the pace for what has developed into the current economy of places like the Congo. It's an extraneous economy that looks towards outside, just as we talked about importation of goods, for example, the way Sonny was mentioning, importation of goods, and people were relying on let's say, scavenging outside. I mean, whatever has been left behind from outside and then dumped into the local market, that tendency of dependence on external products that are not always quality products, because it affects the life of people over there. Not just, let's say, you spend a couple of $1,000s to buy a second-hand car from Japan that you bought at $500 in Tokyo, in the Tokyo market. You bought it online, and by the time it is shipped to you and delivered on the dock of the Matadi port in Western Congo, the worth of the vehicle becomes 4, 5, 7 times the value of the purchase. So what could have been a $500 car at purchase turns out to be, by the time of delivery, some, let's say, $4,000 car, and it's a small size car. And so the higher you go, the more expensive it is. And sometimes, I mean, I spent a little bit of time in private sector, and I was country representative for a freight company. I had to walk away from the position pretty quickly. Although I was a minority shareholder, I walked away from it quickly because it didn't make sense to me. You are looking at the cost of goods when you purchase them, but when you get them to the dock and you want to bring them into the territory, the prices are set by the whims of an individual who has absolutely little to no power. So dictatorship is not just a problem with people sitting on the top, it's also with the people that take over power and try to implement that level of abuse at their own level. Many times you'll hear about accounts, for example, of killings and assassinations taking place, and you'll hear hundreds or even thousands of people that have been killed. I'll tell you, none of these people have been executed directly by any heads of state, not at all, but simply by people who believe that they're implementing the power of the people above, or their intention, their design, and making other people's lives miserable, or just deciding whether you live or you live not. I mean, I'll go back into the economy right now. I was talking about an extraneous economy that looks at outside. It looks at the West, not just for buying fine goods like products of manufacturer. Now it's looking at China as well, because China has created a whole market in the region, especially the places like the Congo, where there's a lot of wealth or concentrated. But it also has a problem because people have got access to natural resources, but it's a limited access. They can do some type of pro-industrial exploration and find out that this land has got diamond or this land has got crude oil, but they're unable to harness and take the final product to the market, either sell it as a crude product or crude commodity, or even as a fine product, because there is no refinery in the local territory. Why is that happening, and why is it that this has been the case for decades? It's simply because the models that have been implemented have been kind of ingrained in the culture. People think that for you to have a fine product, a final element from the natural commodity, it has to come from Europe. It has to come from China. So that's a problem. It's a little bit of a cultural situation that we're dealing with. Now, with people who have access to power, I'm not even going to talk about whether it's legitimate or not, but having access to power and having a say on the natural commodities in the local territory, the problem with them is that they're trying to implement failed models from the past, failed patterns of how to run the local economy. For example, most, if not all, of the Congolese leaders think that in order for them to start doing investment in the Congo, they have to invite the investors. And by investors, I mean white investors. So if you're African Americans, your odds are not as high as a white investor. It's a little bit of something ingrained in the culture. And why is it not that they're opening doors to local investors? People could, let's say, not come up with a major corporation like ExxonMobil or whatever large American corporation, but that could do some small-scale business and start adding value into local commodities. That's something that does not exist because the problem stems from perception. The first problem with the perception is that it has to be foreign, has to be white. That's the dependency and the dominance that already exists at the level, and it's a problem. Second, they want easy money. They want cash right now for flashy action. By easy money, I'm talking about borrowing, either from the IMF or the World Bank, so just go back into the Bretton Woods system. I was sharing with a friend, and I believe my friend is in the room here, the problem we have in the country is that the crisis was born from the instruments of solution. The people that came and say, we can give you some cash versus your natural resources, and you're going to build roads, and you're going to develop schools and hospitals and things like those, are the very same people who came back later and told the country, you have borrowed as much as $3 billion, now you owe us $15 billion. That has happened. It's historically recorded. There's evidence about it out there. Now, in order for the Congo to get out of the $3 billion debt that it got into with major projects like the Inga Dam and so on and on, where President Mobutu in the 1970s and 1980s presented himself as a builder, and builder not out of pocket, but builder out of IMF money, out of World Bank money. And he wanted to please his followers, his fans, and he went and contracted debts in the name of the country. So he walked away from power, ended up dying in 1997, but the country still suffers the consequences of his choices. He chose to invest into foreign dependency, not building local capacity. That's one of the problems we have in the Congo. And I believe it's the same problem in most of those African countries. I mean, people have not come to realize that to many people from the West who are putting their money into the local market in the Congo, it's a venture, meaning they're risking, they're venturing. So the same mindset should be also instilled in the local population. How do I venture my resources into this economy and make it big time? If you look at a sector like telecommunication, there's a number of telecommunication companies in the Congo. There's a little bit of monopoly that was developed because the monopolies was born from the fact that the people in power had stakes in private sector. In the telecommunication company, I'm not going to delve into this camera here, but what I want to say is that there's clear evidence that these people have stakes and therefore enforce a monopoly because they're not thinking about the good of the people, the local population. They're thinking about how are we going to feed up our own nest at the end of the day, whether we're in office or outside of the office. Now, in the telecommunication sector, when you look at the monopoly that has been established, it leaves little to no room for competition. It leaves little to no room for innovation. And innovation gets as high as the whimsies of the people who are investing the money in the local market, meaning they might not want to bring the latest, let's say, state-of-the-art product simply because they're already making money with what they have. Internet speed is a problem for a lot of people. Access to information, and this is not just in telecommunication sector, but in many other sectors, you always find problems. So, I mean, I could just spend hours and hours talking about different aspects of the Congolese crisis, but I wanted to indicate that the economy, because of historical factors, is first of all weak because the major Western states, especially American states in the Congo, ended up being, choked and almost died in 1991 and 1993, when in the month of September, I believe, January of 1991 and September 1993, there was a general looting around the country, What happened is that the government failed to pay the salaries of the military. They did not get their stipends and so on and on. Instead of rebelling against their leadership, they decided to go and loot private sector to pay themselves. They destroyed General Motors' representation in the Congo, and that was the very last time the American giant decided to have a presence in the Congo, and they destroyed many other things. So one of the problems that's also not helping the development of this country right now is the fact that people are venturing in the Congo or in a place like Angola. I do not know what tomorrow is going to be. That uncertainty could be the fact that either there's going to be a nationalization, meaning your private sector, you could be Tesla, you could be Microsoft, you could be whatever you name it, and you have a presence in the Congo. Somebody wakes up and says, in the name of patriotism, I'm going to make this company my own company. It is our private company. You've been plundering a country, so your money's here, your investment here, your buildings have been built, but you're not going back with it. You can go, but we keep this here. It has happened places like Venezuela, but also in Zaire in 1973, nationalization, where foreign companies with stakes in Zaire ended up being turned into national companies with a local leadership that was not prepared for management. So what they did is they binged into the resources that existed. They did not maintain the instrument for production, the instruments of production, and ended up finding themselves in a crisis, and they had to file for bankruptcy pretty quickly. And this is how millions of jobs were killed. It started with nationalization and then the looting in 1991 and 1993 when all the businesses that were healthy in the country went bankrupt, from coffee production for companies to just companies that were turning local goods, local crude products into fine products. And what it did is immediately it deterred investment from abroad, and also it eliminated millions of jobs. If you look at a city like Kinshasa is 12 million big. I mean, that was in 2008. 12 million people population. Portland is just a city of 67,000, and it's the largest city in Maine. So you can't even compare Maine with Kinshasa in terms of size. And 12 million big, but the jobs that exist are not as many as 12 million positions. Everyone in the morning in Kinshasa, almost everyone commutes to the CBD, the Central Business District of Kinshasa down in Gombe, in order to try and do some type of job, whether they're a corporate executive, they're a junior executive, or they're just a janitor, or maybe they're just trying to knock on the door of one of their classmates and try to get a couple dollars to go by until next season where they have an opportunity. So everyone is commuting toward downtown Kinshasa. With that happening, you have a transportation crisis. The roads are not very good. They're not very well maintained. Significant investment have been made in the recent past with the government borrowing. I mean, under President Kabila, the very recent president, in 2008, they borrowed billions of dollars from, is it Wexim Bank? Exim Bank, a Chinese bank, that gave them significant loan, but in counterpart, they did not have to pay back cash. It sounded like a good deal. It's like free money, a free ride here. But in reality, what happened is that the natural resources of the country were traded for that that loan. And that's being said, the country is not going to have a takeaway that's going to be on par with the investment. So basically, it was a flashy investment where on the surface you have billions of dollars put into public infrastructure for the first time in almost 3 decades, but finally, the roads that have been invested into are already being affected by destruction. I mean, they're destroyed by now. Many of the roads are destroyed, and a few days ago, the city of Kinshasa was literally flooded, not because of, global warming, but simply because of the drainage system that has not been very well thought of. The Chinese investors came and did what they did, they get their part of the deal, but the Congo is suffering from it. So I am personally very careful with flashy investment that are intended to look good in the eyes of the people and possibly try and preserve a situation, because what the politicians are doing, and just as it was said by the President Papy here, the politicians have secured one of the rare jobs that are available in the country. So for you to be a politician, you have a secure job. It just takes you to be a little loud on television and on local newspaper and radio. You got to make yourself public and be known and speak in the name of the good of the miserable people that will elect you tomorrow, and you'll never go back to the neighborhood simply because you made yourself a situation. And you know that next part is going to be liability. So, I mean, I can go on, but these are things that have laid the groundwork for a crisis that makes the country look unhealthy, a failed state. And I know from a PR perspective, I've been behind the door of some discussions where people were very uncomfortable with statements like the Congo being a failed state. But it works from a protocol standpoint. But the security, the safety is working for a handful of people. They have their own guard, they have billions of dollars as evidenced by the Panama reports, Panama paper reports that evidence that the country per se has got a wealth concentrated in the hands of a family that's like a new dynasty, and it could be as much as $15 billion. Let's say the money is taken away from these people and reinvested into the local country. Why would the country go and borrow from the IMF? Why would they borrow from the World Bank? That wouldn't be happening, but it's not happening. Why? Because there's been a political transition with the latest elections in 2018 in the Congo, where a peace deal has been cut. I give you access to my presidential office, I keep a preserve of my wealth. That's what's happening right now. And the very same people who were pushing against corruption yesterday and impunity of crime are today partners of people who have not just plundered the country, but also have a massive record of public crime. I think I'll stop there for now.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I want to transition to the Q&A section so that people can ask questions that have been on their mind. Reminder that we didn't cover the questions about the community here in Maine, but please feel free to ask about the asylum seekers who have arrived this year, and I can tell you that the number of phone calls that these two have received in the last hour, I think every 7 seconds their phones are lighting up. So they really are at the center of the work with these two communities, so they can answer any questions that you have. So please feel free to raise your hand and try to speak up so that everyone can hear you. Yes.
You all did a great job presenting the crisis, and I have two questions. One is, could you say a little bit more in Angola about when I've been an interpreter over the past several years, and I interpreted for a lot of the first people who came back in 2015 or so, and it seemed like most people described gangs coming in and attacking family members, and that was why they left. Who are those gangs? Where do they come from? What is exactly going on in that environment? You described in the Congo how people who are I just want to know in Angola specifically, in Luanda specifically, and also some people described having being called, being ethnic slurs specifically against Kikongo people. Just if you could mention that. And then I have another question, which is more for the folks from the Congo, and well, in general, it relates to all of this in terms of the two bipolar opposites of nationalization and complete, government. Let's say the complete helplessness of folks, economically speaking. And what I want to know is there any movement or organized effort for the self-determination, for the, I know I've read the speeches of Thomas Sankara about the need to produce and control your own food, not to rely on imports. Does anyone know if there is anything either in exile or in the country that is kind of planning the next steps? So, lots of questions.
I go first?
Please.
Okay, you did a mistake to let me go first. Okay, great. So talking about the ethnicity conflict that you have, you just saw what Luke was saying. And then I was looking on the map, and then you see all the north of Angola, it's almost the Congo. And then you have a bunch of, I count from the Atlantic up to here, something like 7 or 8 ancestral kingdoms. And then as you say, the people are like, there is no river there. So you can cross anytime you want, come back. It's just like Mexico and the United States. So you go, you come back. And then here you have a Rio, wherever there. You can just get cut. But here you have nothing. You can cross anytime you want. And I've been lucky to go all over. And even here, I've been all over the country, and then I know what I'm talking about. So what's happened is this. When the Portuguese people were leaving Angola, they left us with something that we cannot solve up to now. So all the money in the colonial time was produced in north, here. So exactly here, because that's where Carmona actual wish. So that's where everything was coming, riverbank, cotton, coffee, right, from north. And then that was built, the money was built Lisboa. But Nova Lisboa was right here, in Wambo. Can you imagine where you have your money, you leave it, and then you come sit here? I always ask myself, why Nova Lisboa was here and now there? So you have all the money, all the production up there, but people are living here. Why? Because there was a constant fight with the people we call Bakongo, the Northeast people, the people living on north. They are always fighting against the Portuguese people at that time, dominating in Angola, because we have the backseat of Congo, who were already independent since 1960. And then we got independence in 1975. So they could go to Congo, prepare themselves, and come fight against the Portuguese. Go fight. And then, what's happening in Africa, when the people, the Portuguese, the colonization power goes out the country, they left you with a situation that you cannot handle. Like in Congo, you have Patrice Lumumba, a true leader. But, guess what? Who got the power? Kasavo. The true leader you have in Angola at that time, you have FNLA, which was Robert. He was the true leader, which gave the power to Agostinho Neto, who weren't as involved as the other leader, because the other leader is Bakongo. So all the people up there saw in him the leader. But they give the power to another guy from south here. He got the power. So what's happened? And then before they leave, they say, hey, you know what? FNLA come episode. So they put in the people from FNLA, that's how the party, political party, they eat people. Pass on TV, everything. And then since today, they say, we call it Zairens. So everybody who have contact with Zaire, the other side that time, Zairens come episode. people from Congo, from Zaire. That's why you have this fight all the time. They don't have acceptation in Angola because the people from Portugal, they say, oh, no, we have to left these people because they were all the time fighting with us. That's the caveat you're going to have. Never accept in Angola all those people. We are fighting. You have all the power in the hand of the people in South. Why the people who are like this, you make the power, they are in North. So that's the contrast. All the time you have these people who can control the country quickly with all the power that they have, but the actual man in power is the South guy. That's the first immigration people that you are seeing because they are not accepting Angola. They stand up against the power because they say, yeah, I have the power here. I can stand up against this guy. When they stand up, this guy come quickly with the help of Portugal. All these people, that's what I say to people, all the Cold War that you have been talking here, we were seeing it in Angola. So anytime this guy tend to stand, you have the power coming from north, from here, Western country, to just come, hey, you have nothing to say. Because Portugal want to maintain its power in Angola, economic control in Angola. So that's the first immigration people that you're seeing. It's mostly you see it's Bakongo people. We are coming from north. So the next one that you're gonna see now happening, it's almost all over because the crisis is not choosing anymore. Everybody from everywhere you are getting the crisis because the crisis is coming from outside now. The economy is not forgiving anybody. So everybody, we are in the same situation, and then people are standing up. Even the people who were in the power last year or in 2017, 16, now they are suffering, and they are coming here. They are coming just to seek for some good situation because we are standing against the same party. So the same party in power today is divided. You have a party in the same party, political party, fighting with another part of the party. So you have this conflict. And then just to say, if something has been done to kind of solve the economic crisis that we are having, in the country, we are trying to diversify the economy. That's why we went after the IMF money, but it's not easy. It's just coming like on what, 1% of whatever thing that you can get out of the economy. We still relying on oil. But happy, we have something that we call it FIDIMA. It's the Fundo Internacional para o Desenvolvimento e a Modernização de Angola, which means international fund for the development and the modernization of Angola. Because I always feel, and in my opinion, I always say, I stop to point my finger to other people. I'm always, what am I doing? I am part of the problem. And then how can I be part of the solution? So for a long time, I was thinking, like he was saying, Luke was saying, where is our father, the white guy, to come and help us? That's one thing that also the colonization left us. Dependable. We get dependent of aid. And then I never saw a country developed by aid. No one. If you find one country in the world who was developed, the economy, whatever, with aid, then come with the program, with the method. I would like to learn that. So we are doing what we call FIDIMA because just say, Chinese build the road, and then the next day there is no system. The draining system is not there. And now I'm asking, why in the world a Chinese guy have to come to Angola or Congo and build the road? where is the engineer guy from the University of Agostino Neto? Where is the engineer guy from whatever university that you have in Congo? So that's our problem. My whole second problem is that we are not producing the people who can solve our problem. We cannot have the self-development that you have in the United States. First, we don't have the same weapon. We don't have the same situation. How can we develop the same way? Even Europe didn't develop the same way than America. Look at India. Look at China. They're not getting the same path as the United States. But China today can compete with the United States. They get another path, but we are getting there. So if we can have people who can solve our problem, malaria, have been born in malaria. Still today, malaria is killing more than any other thing. Who is solving that? Who is trying to do something against that? So we want people here, FIDMA, we are thinking that way. We can have people here train, get the knowledge, and go back, do things. Do things, bring the private sector. I learned from one richest guy in Nigeria. It's 4 billion. He told me something, I never forget it. He worth 4 billion. He told me, you know what? Corruption never stop business. Never stop business, neither development. Go do your thing. I'm shocked. You know what shocked me in this is the white line, the blue line. That's what shocked me. You know the blue line? How many industry it can have? All the Congo can be together with this. But there is nothing in this river, nothing. Even the barrage we are talking here, Hinga, the money that we got from the IMF, until today, nothing done. It's closed. They don't use it, underused. But how many people are out there? They are doing something, even sending their kids to learn about electricity, how to produce it, and then go back and then make it work. I mean, I learned one thing, we never import fufu. And then everybody in Angola eat fufu at least 3 days a week. So we never imported. We are autosufficient in production of fufu. Why we cannot do this with tomatoes? Why cannot do this with the same fish that you are eating every day? So there is a way, because we can produce enough fufu for all the country. I mean, we can produce rice also. We can do so. There is a way. But we are not paying attention because we have another picture of the development. We are thinking development the way that we should not be thinking. We should be rethinking our development going by problem. You didn't get developed because you just said, you say, we're going to build this thing now. Problem brought you where you are. Cold brought you clothes. Now you have jacket, all this stuff. Helen Bean is there just because of your jacket. You see that? Because of the winter. But we don't need Helen Bean. Why should we have Helen Bean in Angola anyway? When it never been less than 88. We need other thing. We need something to make my fufu easy to cook. So I'm gonna give a chance to my brother here.
Thank you. To make it short, just so I can answer Elizabeth, my colleagues, Nsiona mentioned it all, and I was just gonna mention what I said earlier about the power of business or agriculture. Everything is run by the government. It's as from the Congo. It's hard for example, me or Luke, to do something, because every time you have like a a good idea to open a business or to start something good, the people who's there actually has for what we call a percentage, you know, even though they had nothing to do. So we know, like, if you've won, you pay your taxes, you pay your licenses, and you may be good to go. But back home, it's a little different. That's what makes it hard for the people who's living in the village or, you know, in the country to start, you know, growing stuff, because the market is given to the foreigners, because they'll prefer, the government would like to give the market to the foreigners, so just to make it hard on the own people, because they know they're getting more money, even though it's the diamond, or, you know, all the gold or food. So it's like we all import, you know, stuff from outside, because the people who runs the country want just to make it hard so people that lives there cannot. Because I have no idea if it's like in purpose, but I think this is the way we were governed. We've always been governed. But we hope, since we recently had an election, you know, it's a new president that just came in. We hope things will get better. As to remind you that for the past, like, 40, 50 years, people used to get paid $10 a month. Just imagine, with a family of 4, 5, 10 children, getting paid $10 a month, and how are you gonna send your kid to school? How are you gonna feed your family? How are you gonna do that? So this is being created by the government. And I remember I mentioned something when the asylum seeker arrived. That was on the news, but it just was edited. Didn't go to the TV for some reason. And one journalist was asking me, what do you think we can do, or what do you think, how this is gonna stop? And my answer is like, well, you know, this will never stop if everybody here in this room start talking to the government. You know, it's about time to tell our American government, or probably also the people from Europe, to stop helping dictators. It's the same, you know, if we don't tell them, you know, our elect people, like, well, look what's happening. This is what's happening in Congo, because the Congo has been in war almost, you know, since our independence in the 1960s. There's always something going on because of all we have is the resources. And I think if we start talking to, I remember the new president saying that there's also a way, you know, if you want to buy or get those diamonds that you put us into the war for the past 15 or 20 years, there's a way to talk, but stop killing. Like, as we're talking now, there's every single day there's been some killing in Beni, for example. But we have the large forces of the UN in the country. We have all, you know, the United States mission in the Congo. But why this is not stopping? So it's time for us not just to condemn people who are coming here, but just to see why this is happening. If we all here can stop it, and I think we may see, and I know for sure the United States has a better relationship with the Congolese, with the Congo, since the World War I, II, which I believe. And if some of us here can raise the voice, maybe we all can find a solution. So that's why it makes it hard for the people to do something, because your government is charging you more than foreigners. Yes, thank you.
Yep, in the back.
Well, yeah, anyway, thank you. My name is McDonald Johnson. I'm from the Republic of Liberia in West Africa. And I can very much relate to what my brothers are saying in other countries. But my concern, it has to do with brain drain. You know, there's this program that goes on in Africa called the Diversity Lottery, where a lot of you play the lotto and you win, you and your family get a opportunity to travel abroad, you can come for studies, and more people get to stay. So what can our government do to encourage people who come abroad, study, to go back? Because that will, in a great way, help to develop Africa. The people who come to learn, they get training, education, they can go back and help to, you know, develop that country. You know, like I said, I'm from Liberia. The U.S. Embassy, in fact, today I just heard the largest embassy in Africa. They have temporarily stopped the issuing of visa to ordinary people trying to come in as America, so all those things will help to affect the continent. But anyway, so what can our government do to help encourage people who come abroad to go back? I think that can really help in the country.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, McDowell. Pleased to see you finally, actually. I think the crisis in both these countries are at the DNA level. So, except if we work on genetics, meaning we come up to with a solution at a systemic level, there won't be anything that will be, improved. It's not the government, it's not the people, it's the system. That's where we have a problem. If we do not acknowledge the fact that the system is extraneous on the one hand, because not just that economic decisions have to be made based on the best interest of the economies that are creating the final product and sending them back at a higher rate to back to the country, but also people, the leaders should not be short-sighted. There should not be people who just want to do flashy stuff and please people for a couple of weeks or a couple of years, and then that's it. I think we have to rethink all of our system from what is power, how does it work, who can achieve power. Can anybody wake up because of the magic of democracy or because of the magic of their ties to the president and end up in office and occupy a very strategic position? All these things need to be addressed. And what is justice, for example? In 2015, I had the privilege of working inextricably with President Thabo Mbeki, and I supported his communication and provided some insights into some aspects of the economy that helped funnel his understanding of what was known as the financial influx, or financial flux, meaning that money is leaving the country, leaving the Congo illegally and going abroad. People would come with some fresh capitals from places like India, Pakistan, and some other places, invest into a local business in the Congo, make so much profit, but not pay a fair share of taxes, and take away a big chunk of revenue, much higher than their initial investment. So in a sense, investment exists, but it does not exist for the local. It exists for the foreigners who not just venture their money in the local economy with privileges, because people are looking at them as coming from outside and they gotta have the magic wand to make everything happen. But also, when they take away benefits, they take away profit, it's a silly amount of profit, because they will escape taxes, not because of non-existence of regulations, but because they cut deals with people in the government. Part of solving the crisis in our countries could be resorting to much more creative approaches like AI, artificial intelligence. If we could automate most of the deeds and what is it called again? Most of the deeds that are generated by the government, and not have them go through the fingers of a public servant, we could cut down a good chunk of corruption. But it's not happening. They know about the solution, but they will not implement it. Why? Because behind the biometric passport that every Congolese carries, the brother of the president, the former president, has a stake. So if I pay, the money, or the amount of money was $120 normally for the passport, but you end up paying $350 because instead of waiting for a whole week, you could get the passport over a period of 3 days, and there's no relationship between the $120 charged for the passport and the $350 that you end up paying. So what you need to do and understand is that the $120 will partly go into public reserves, but will also help fund the people who are providing the technology, and also will help pay one sibling to the president, for example. And if you pay them $350, you made them just filthy wealthy, period. As simple as that. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. I don't think we need a cosmetic approach here, where we make the countries look good, but nothing systemically has been I mean, reverse. We need to reverse this failing of the system at the core level. And I mean, that's I mean, thrifty in my words I could be. It just starts with healing the country profoundly, from determining what's our economic system. Are we capitalist, or are we socialist, or are we anything else? Maybe Africans or African countries like the Congo could come up with something and say, we're not capitalists, we're not socialists, this is what works best for us. That's not happening. People are living day by day, and the leadership's vision is short-sighted. And I'll give an example that's a little frustrating. Well, the new president in the Congo, whether he has power or not, that's a different talk. But he's roaming the planet. He's roaming the planet right now. He lived and grew up in Belgium, but he's roaming the planet. He's been more destination than any of the wealthiest of you here might have been. Not because he just wants to do tourism, but he believes that his approach of going and talking about the Congo in every single table, not sending his foreign minister could be doing that, but bringing up larger delegations and spending public dollar on this effort, he believes that's going to work for the country. It's not working. Almost a year now in office. It's not working, and it won't work. Why? Because you're trying to borrow money. And what do you have to give in counterpart? It's simply your word, your credibility as an individual. He's a good man, I have to tell you. He is a good man, but that's not enough, because around him is a bad system. The bad system is his partner, the bad system is his predecessor, the bad system is the absence of justice, the bad system is no protection for your investment, the bad system is that if you invest in the Congo right now, you'll only have your eyes to cry. As simple as that. So it might sound a little too bold to say, but I have to be honest. We have a systemic problem. We need to rethink it. It might take intellectuals, but unfortunately you don't achieve power because you're an intellectual in Africa. You either have family ties or you just made some brouhaha, some noise on television. You became a public speaker, a celebrity, and you end up having office. So one thing I like saying is that one of the defects of democracy, wherever people intend to implement it, is that even though the crazy man in your neighborhood can end up as your elect, he can become your representative. It just takes the magic of a few votes. So the people in office are not necessarily the rightest of us. That's the problem we have. Not just the people in office, but we need to rethink the system.
I think I will get another approach to that. So the first thing is like there is 3 big major revolutions in the world: the agriculture, the industrial, and the democracy, the French Revolution. So we as Africans, we missed the 2 first. We didn't have an agricultural revolution, neither the industrial, but we have the 3rd one, the Republic, the French. That's the democracy. And I think until that we people from Africa, we begin, I agree, we have a systemic problem. And then the systemic problem begin to be solved here, in the mind of people. We have to change the way to think, the way we expect the development to be. There is no development, just people thinking, sitting somewhere to do a bridge. No, that's not. The development is how you solve the problem. That's how we begin to think. Why people are not going back? Because people are not thinking. Ask yourself why you are here. That's my first question before I took the office of the community. I'm like, why am I here anyway? So when I begin to answer that question, I was like, is there somebody back home who is in the same situation than I? Who is suffering the same thing that I'm running of? So what am I doing here to help that person? So if, let's say, I ran because I was sick, I couldn't have the treatment back home. Is there no more sick people back home? So what am I doing happier to have those sick people? So when you begin to ask yourself those questions, you're going to end up seeing what he's saying, what my brother is saying here, a lot of barrier who can stop you to bring the solution back home. But as I said, you can do anything. Okay? Corruption, whatever thing that's happened there, you cannot stop people. I mean, you can do anything, but if I go back, like let's say, like a baker, just providing bread. Who doesn't eat bread, everybody? And then with that, I decided to change a neighborhood, not a country, a neighborhood. And then I go with that. The next neighborhood, the next one. I'm sure our problem is that we missed the two first. And then we don't have partner up here who can help us. Do you ever hear a president went to prison because he didn't do the industrial development of his country?
No.
But if you don't do the democratic part, you go to jail. So tell me how the West is helping Africa. You go to jail because you don't respect the result of the election. That's the democratic part. But nobody go to jail if he didn't develop his country. Or the agriculture is not going up. Nobody. Even borrowing money for that. And then the money stay even here because they buy house here. Right now, Angola is having crisis with Portugal because all the farmers, people from the last government, they bought houses in Portugal. They bought Portugal in 2007. All the bank, Portugal could be like Greece. But it's saved by Angolan money. Now, all those people who put money in Portugal, they accuse sexual abuse, I don't know what, he has this, corruption, all this stuff. We all don't own money. Okay, that's good. Angolan person, Angola citizen, Angola money, send him back. Send the money back with him. We're going to judge him in Angola. People come back, money doesn't come. So they enforce the democratic part. You go to jail if you don't respect the result of the election. But you can borrow money to build to restart the economy. And then you eat that money with your Jeep or your SUV, you don't go to jail. What signal we are sending? So until that we begin to rethink why we are here, and I doubt it, if we have thousands of us, we go back home to begin to do things that solve people problem. People just need a job. You give them a job. In Angola, until now, we didn't have a problem because people were eating, people were having money. Go to job, you have your job, you got money. But now, if we can get in the two first one, it's now a problem because we have a good land. You just throw your bean there, tomorrow is growing. That's why we didn't go to the agricultural development, development. But you have winter. You have to do agriculture to keep it. We don't. So we miss it. The industrial development came for the agricultural part. Because we wanted to produce even more, then we went to the industrial thing. The tractor or the stuff. We miss it again because we are not doing the agricultural part. Now the population is growing, growing, growing. We need more than what we have. Where we get it, we import it. So we have to rethink our problem, our system, because no country, we get independable. That's what we are, dependable. Of everything is coming from West. So dependable that we are not going back, my brother. We are staying here. So dependable that we are not going back. We need to learn from here and go back. I was amazed when I came here to find a book of mathematics, just math. Everything I knew about math here in my head, I have a lot of formula. But I didn't know what that served for. The square of hypotenuse, you know, you do this, it's got the square of the two sides. I know all this stuff in my head. But I didn't know what it served for. When I came here, I found a book like this. I'd never lose this book. I have it all the time because they explain those things, how you can apply it in real life. We need people to solve African problems. That's what we need. We need our system have to produce intellectual people who can solve African problems. I cannot have a Chinese come and do our road because he doesn't understand our problem. I cannot have just a doctor from America to go to Congo. He doesn't know malaria. He doesn't know that. How you want him to solve malaria problem if he doesn't know that? We need our faculty of School of Medicine to produce enough intellectual people to do the research. That's why we are failing. We don't have a research department to do our stuff in our way. That's the only solution. Your people, when you come out of USM, you know what you're going to be doing with what you are learning. But we don't know. You have a degree, you don't know what you're going to do with that. No practice, nothing. You have a degree, but you don't know. You're an engineer. Give him whatever. What is this material? He doesn't know. Engineer. The system, we have to rethink it. And rethink even the education system. I don't know even where we get that system. I don't know. The colonization piece, they just give you a system, you are doing that just like this, doing it. Giving people math, whatever, and then that's it. And then you come out of that, you have a lot of stuff in your brain and useful. What you gonna do with that? Rethink the system, but in a way to solve our problem. That's how we get back. So that's why we have to learn here, right? Go back. I'm going back.
Thank you so much, Nsiona. We're over time, but I think you all have given us a tremendous amount to think about. Thank you all for coming, and thank you again to our panelists.